We're live. All right. I will call to order this meeting of the Glendale-River School District Board of Education on December 3, 2025, starting with a roll call for board members. Chris Robinson. Here. Katie Avalos.
Here.
Karen Conwell.
Here.
Danielle Bailey.
Here.
Carla Pennington Cross is here. All are present and accounted for. At this time, if you wish, you may stand and join in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving on to item 1E, agenda approval.
I move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
A motion by Karen Conwell, second by Chris Robinson to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Agenda is approved. Item 1E on the agenda, approval of board meeting minutes from November 19.
I move to approve the board meeting minutes from November 19. I'll second.
Any comments, revisions, questions? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Chris Robinson, second by Katie Avalos to approve the board meeting minutes for November 19, 2025. All in favor? Aye. Hearing 5 ayes, motion carries. Moving on to item 1F, meeting grounding, which Danielle Bailey has kindly agreed to lead.
Right. Okay. So I was thinking about the topics we're talking about tonight, some big things that kind of connect a lot of our, like our hopes and dreams for our district, our shared goals. When we're looking at the state of how our students are doing, what we expect of them, we talk about how we're gonna fund things, like, just the interconnectedness of it all. It seems like big stuff tonight. I went to the school-wide meeting at Parkway. Was that yesterday?
That was yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
And Parkway's word of the month is perseverance. And Mr. Krager shared a video where a very cool dude named Mr. B defined perseverance as doing something until it's done, even when it's hard. And he talked about working smart and working hard, despite the more popular mantra, work smarter, not harder, which is like I say that all the time. But it gave me pause, right? Because hard work is it does something for all of us. And the truth is we ask our public schools to do hard work every single day. We place in their hands, or in our hands rather, the hands of our administrators, our teachers, staff, students, families, this board, and our community members, the monumentally important task of educating our children, caring for them, and helping them feel a sense of belonging, worth, and interconnectedness to the world around them. Administrators are asked to deliver more for students and staff with fewer resources to keep up with rapid advances in technology inside buildings overdue for modernization, to close gaps shaped by deeply entrenched and systemic inequities, and navigate rising costs while state legislators continue to intentionally underfund public education. Our teachers, who are invaluable, we ask them to meet every learner where they are, to build strong social and emotional foundations, to form relationships with students and families, which we know are essential to academic success, and yet their work is often measured not by the depth of those relationships, but by increasingly rigid metrics they must meet, often without the resources they deserve. Families are asked to stay deeply engaged partners, even as demands on their time, our energy, emotional bandwidth continue to grow. Supporting a child's academic, social, and mental health needs while also caring for ourselves is no small task. Every part of our learning community is carrying hard things, and still no one has walked away. We persevered, and we continue to persevere because that's who we are as a district. We stay with the work. The students, families, staff, administrators, board members alike, goals move, barriers grow, we keep going. Because we can do hard things. We've proven that, again and again. And tonight's agenda asks something of all of us in our community. And sometimes it's something more, right? Maybe it's more creativity, more collaboration, more willingness to adapt, imagine new possibilities, to keep moving towards our mission and vision that we all believe in. So as we begin, I just kind of wanted to center us in this truth that hard doesn't mean impossible. Hard means worth doing, and we'll do it together until it's done. Just like Parkway's word of the month, well, embody perseverance. That's it. So
It was beautiful.
very nice.
Thank you. Keep going till we're done. All right, thank you, Danielle. Moving on to item 2, public comments. At this time, visitors may speak on any non-agenda item. Anyone online?
And yeah, we have Michelle online, no comments.
Then we are on to district and school report cards. Item 3A. Welcome, Jenica.
I was gonna do it.
I know, I meant to do that. Dang it,
How
that's
did
what
you
Mr.
do
P
it?
does. I can do hard things, right?
I can do.
But it's more like, we can do hard things. Oh. Sorry, I meant to make everybody do that. Good reminder, Jen.
We'll do it.
Oh, yeah, but we've done the hard things. We did.
Okay, and as Jenica starts, I'm gonna ask for efficiency that we all work on holding our questions until Jenica invites questions or is done, and then we'll do the round. Or just keep things moving efficiently.
I'm just gonna do some highlights. You all had access to the report. So just some big intro highlights. The 24-25 report card is a new baseline. So this is new achievement baseline. So this will move forward in future years. The achievement priority area scores cannot be compared to previous years. And then the proficiency rates, attendance, absenteeism, and growth can be comparable with other years. So just to ground us in that. So I did share overall district score and ratings. So overall, our district meets expectations with a score of 70.8. It's important to note the district's weighting model. This is different for every school district. It is based on economically disadvantaged students. So that's your percentage for achievement and growth. So that changes with every district. So everyone has like a different model for comparison reasons. Priority area for achievement, our score was a 65.7 for the district report card. Our ELA score was 64.4, math 66.9. When we're looking at trends, we did have a slight decline in advanced and meeting students based on proficiency, and then an increase in advanced students for math on proficiency. And I did put in the STAR data from spring just so we could see like a comparable what our internal data was sharing with us. And it was pretty similar that we did have a little bit of a dip in ELA and a little higher scoring in math. When looking at growth for our district, this is a highlight for the math area. We did see this in our internal data last spring with our STAR assessment as well, that we had some really great growth in math. We previously talked about that. So I did put in there the growth scores for ELA and math for this year. We had a dip in our ELA growth scores for the 24-25 school year when comparing it to the 23-24 school year. Our target group outcomes was a highlight for us. So we did have some really good growth in our target group, or I should say a really good growth for our math target group students. We did have growth for ELA as well, but the math outscored them. And so you can see our target group outcomes for 23-24 was 60.5, and then this last school year was 68.1. So a nice increase for our students in that target group. And then on for graduation, we're doing really well in that area. Our chronic absentee rate was 87.4, attendance 94.2. So we were at an 85.4. Which when looking at other districts, we're sitting in a really nice spot in comparison. When we're looking at our school accountability overall, we did have an exceeds expectations for Glendale's middle school, and then we had meets expectations for Parkway Elementary. And then looking at some of the strengths based on the report card. And this is just one little piece of everything in our district, right? So a lot of the strengths were our attendance. The strong math growth, and we've been seeing that again in our internal data. Our target group math growth continues to outperform non-target peers. We have stable achievement across the board, a high participation rate. And then in all priority areas of the report card, we were in meets or exceeds. Areas for continued growth. So we have persistent gaps remain. Okay, we know that. Economically disadvantaged students are Black and African American students and students with disabilities. And our ELA gap widened slightly this last year. I know we're not supposed to compare achievement.
Internally,
Yeah, but we did see that.
Yeah.
Early literacy, the Act 20 focus. Our third graders, the meeting in advance was 46%. That's below the state average. ELA growth and the value add lags behind math. So in our non-proficient students showed lower than average growth in ELA. So the math was low. We had high growth. So thinking about improvement strategies, so what we ended up rolling out this year is we saw the reading plans for both all the way K through 8. So we have a focus on literacy this year. So really focusing in on expanding and structured literacy with Act 20. So providing more coaching for 95%. And then also that implementation of the HMH pilot in grades 6 through 8. We're working on early intervention blocks and middle school small group instruction. Really focusing in on those target groups to really accelerate that growth. We've been utilizing literacy screeners and then progress monitoring cycles, and then also systems to track all of that data, utilizing XMath. Math, we've maintained the target group instruction. We're going to continue to do that and continue those math screeners and the progress monitoring cycles that we've started. And then for our target group, strengthening our multi-level systems of support. So really focusing in on systems of how we're tracking that data, how we're collecting it and going back to that data to figure out, is this intervention working? Is it not working? And then what do we have to do to limit? An increase in family engagement. So with our Title I policy, we'll be looking at increasing family engagement and starting the group in February. And then continuing to use those 6 to 8 week data cycles with our interventionists and checking in on how we're doing those tier 2 and tier 3 groups. Attendance, working closely with the counselor and school social worker, and then also starting some proactive campaigning on, belonging and all of that within our buildings. So overall, I don't think we had any surprises on this report card. I think we were seeing the same data internally. So that's where we see it. So I did share some DPI things that they wanted to share. So it's on the back, just variability. All that.
Thank you. Thank you. This was the best explanation for weighting that I've seen.
Okay.
So thank you. I felt like I finally understood how they did it. So thank you.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Also, I want to give credit to Anna for building the foundation for Glen Hills.
oh, you mean back when she was the principal?
That's what I mean.
Yes.
That is deep, but I mean, that's
Yeah,
pretty
they're
I am interested in the math growth. Is there anything from the way that you're doing math that could be applied to ELA? Or is there anything that you feel like you need to build that ELA growth?
We are working on some buttoning up and tightening the new curriculum is going to really help us. So we have some big gaps in phonics and spelling in the early grades, and buttoning that up That was their first year last
Right,
year.
and it takes a while to build a
And
foundation for
that-
sure.
Sometimes an implementation dip, and then also adding in that explicit instruction to in our middle school
Mhm.
is gonna be supportive. We are looking at other possible curriculums to
Mhm.
possibly pilot in K through 5.
Mhm.
So we are looking at additional resources for
Mhm.
staff, based on feedback. Just those additional, like, tier 2 supports
Sure,
are not, they don't come with the curriculum. They
Right.
we have. So providing some additional supports, absolutely.
thank you.
And that goes into the whole, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Do you need something you don't have?
And we're looking at that. So
Okay.
then, well, that'll be a proposal.
Okay.
It was a really comprehensive report. I don't know, I feel like I have anything that I need additionally. Besides what you're
Yeah, I was very glad for Glen Hills to get a shout out because I
Yeah.
think we often see that or hear that that's, a school that doesn't necessarily recognize for its achievement. This was a really comprehensive report. I appreciated how you broke it out. I did, if you're at all interested, there is a resource that, when I was at the WASB conference, they were able to extrapolate some data and they have some comparables from this year to last year, and I could get you that resource. It was interesting that this particular data sourcing group was like, this is the one way that we can actually compare this year to last year. And I was like, oh, great. So, for what it's worth, yeah. But, yeah.
I had one comment, the district communication for like when the report cards went out. At the end, I think it said something like, this is just one measurement of, et cetera, and I was like, oh, that would have been a great spot for example, like, or the other things we value, and I know maybe it's because like the KPIs aren't like ready for, being like published yet or something, but like sort of just like, I don't know, I was like, I thought there was just like something more we could share to kind of hype up and like let our community know how like holistic we really look at all of this.
I agree with
Just
you,
like-
and we've had conversations of like portrait of a graduate and all of that. Like,
Yeah.
This is what
Yeah,
we're growing this,
yeah,
not just this.
exactly, yeah, it was like, oh, okay, we are, but then it was like, anyway, so that was just one
Yeah.
comment.
That's good feedback.
And then, no, I don't have any like very specific questions. I guess I just like think about the closing the gaps like at a higher level. And I wonder like, are there public schools out there that are like accelerating gap closure that like we like are relying on as like models or that are forming our strategies for improvement?
We are looking at comparable districts, so I did find a couple districts, and they do have some gap closure in ELA that we could look at.
Yeah.
But not very similar at all in math. And not overall achievement.
So in finding another school that has the same weighting based on our demographic information, I think Jenico was able to find one other school in our state that replicates sort of the same weighting that we have. We have a very unique school population in that regard.
Guess I just think about not like maybe not specifically based on like our demographics and report card, but I'm just talking about like gap closure in the various areas that we target. That can't be those gaps are not uncommon.
No.
And I just like wondering if there are actually schools out there that are making significant strides in closing those gaps, and do we look to them?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a really key and critical resource that the administrative leadership team has been using since the last school year. And it's through the new teacher project, which is TNTP. And that particular resource really looks at, since COVID, what are schools that are really accelerating growth? And they looked at schools comprehensively across different demographic barriers that are closing gaps and are seeing a raise in achievement. And so that actually has been sort of the template that the administrative leadership team has been using in our work. So like,
Okay.
centering that sense of belonging is a key and critical sense of
This is
one of the
pretty
things.
great.
So
Right.
belonging, it's a belonging, consistency, and coherence, right?
Okay,
And so
okay.
those three things are things that we're really tackling in this year with a very intentional focus on the belonging component of that. Because we know and recognize that research is pointing to the fact that that's like kind of initial step in that. So
Okay,
yeah, we're spending a lot of time looking at research nationally that shows some of that.
okay. I remember you talking
Yeah,
about this last year, I think,
And
but I
all,
just,
and both building, SIPs are all
Yeah.
based on.
Yeah.
Action steps all.
and
I think our ongoing work too with the Closing the Achievement Gap Consortium is also a way in which we look for specific strategies around some of the other components of raising, like looking at sort of where are their successes within a local region, and that consortium is compiled of both private and parochial and charter and public schools, so there's some ability to share across some of those avenues too.
yeah, I just when I look at improvement strategies, I don't, like, I'm guessing it's probably like embedded in those like very technical, strategies, but it doesn't, it's not obvious that like there's a focus on belonging or the things you said. Thank you. In those aspects, so it, like, sometimes when I read it, it'll just feel like, okay, we're just gonna keep doing this strategy, this strategy, this strategy. And I can't differentiate, like, how is it different than anything we've done before? Are we just, doing the same thing but tinkering? So I mean, it makes sense. It's just like, and it's just how I read it. So I appreciate that kind of that clarification of what's like driving the work. So thanks.
Do you know tell us yet, right?
Yeah. The only question that came to my mind was, also ditto, all the things, all the nice things. So, ditto. What I was thinking about is, Act 20. And whether you think it's had any impact, one way or the other. I mean, we said we saw ELA scores dip. What impact is that having in the elementary school? Is it sort of a change of curriculum? Is it I don't know, do you think there's any connection?
I think, well, it's hard to tell, I mean, it's one grade level, right? And so prior to,
Oh, it's third grade, right?
Third grade.
So
Yeah.
they
They're
weren't
the ones
part
that-
of the
they
big
weren't-
Act 20 changes.
No,
They
they
were
were kind
aging.
of coming in at the
Got
end, right? So when making that shift to 95%, like they did not have that same foundation. So now, like our true, like last year's kindergarten class, they'll be the first class going all the way through.
Oh, so third graders also moved to the 95% curriculum,
Yeah,
but they had not,
prior to that, they didn't have that explicit.
so they were shifting to another curriculum. So you think that might have had an impact?
Well, and they didn't have all those, not necessarily all those building blocks, right?
Yeah.
That other students will, like the current K-5, the first grade class right now. So I mean, you're just kind of building that up and tightening that foundation up.
Yeah.
So they haven't had all that structured literacy all the way through.
It's a good illustration too of how curriculum change can feel good from a leadership perspective, but
Well,
it
and
impacts
teachers are
student.
learning it too,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So and then
Yeah.
getting through the entire curriculum, so it takes a while to, take a new curriculum on and feel good about it and
Be fluent teaching it.
and use every piece of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that takes time.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from board members? Visitors? Anyone online?
Wayne Martin, 7275 North Port Washington Road, Glendale, Wisconsin, 53217. So the on track for graduation metric, it looks like there's a notable amount of students that are not on track to graduate. Is that something that's actually a concern, or is that just weird state reporting requirements? I suppose another way to phrase it is, do you think everyone in 8th grade is going to be able to graduate?
Well, on-track graduation is really, that metric is a very limited metric that's from a one-time test, and it looks at attendance, 8th grade math score on their forward test. So they take one test, so it's based on one test. And then what is the other marker in there?
Third grade ELA
third grade
And then
ELA.
chronic absenteeism.
Right.
Yeah, and chronic, so if we have students who are chronically absent, they would be considered to be not on track because we know that losing learning time could have an impact on that. And their third grade ELA score, so one test again. So, you know, I think there's like a much more comprehensive way that we would determine whether or not students are on track for graduation. I think a better metric for us is looking at how our students perform in ninth grade. In terms of credit attainment, which is at about 98%,
Yeah,
right?
And that's one of our KPIs.
Yeah.
That's what's funny about this on track for graduation. I mean, we can actually know whether our students are graduating from high school. We literally have that data from
Yeah,
LA. So this feels like it's a strange thing, right? It's an art, it's a piece of artifice in some ways.
Oh, well, right, so it's a KPI, and like when things like this exist, that's why it's great that we are like able to show the actual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Data
Yeah.
that, the real data,
Yeah.
right, not
Yep.
the way the state.
Yeah. And I think I think to your point, like having a conversation with another colleague today in the district that, you know, I mean, there's like the competitiveness that comes out around report cards and communities, right? Like, let's be honest about that. It is also can be a political tool in many ways. I think one of the things to take into consideration is our students are broader and wider, and the work we do with them is broader and wider than one test. I think that's why we do have KPIs to look at that, and then why that's so critically important to show all the ways in which students have felt and safe in our schools. And we know growing and closing the achievement gap is a big academic aim for us, more so than hitting an achievement mark. Right.
Yeah, well, and I think this was a conversation we might have had a year or 2 years back, even too, is like, I'm always hungry for some like communication to supplement this, you know, to combat the presumption, assumption, the stereotype that our kids are going to Nicolay less prepared, which I heard on several different occasions at the Future Strong Summit. But not based on personal knowledge, based on our report card. You know, just that report card alone indicates that our kids are coming, you know, less prepared than our partner districts because they have higher report cards. And you know, there's so much to unpack there. But again, it's like this does speak volumes for us, and if we don't also speak volumes about what we're doing in our students, then this is what like rues the day. This is what people take away. So yeah, still something I'd like to be able to like amplify here from our end.
Anything else, Mr. Martin?
The other one I was wanting to ask about in particular was the chronic absenteeism. Is that mostly excused absences or unexcused absences, or how much of a problem would you say that actually is?
The state defines chronic absenteeism as more than 10 absences within the course of a school year, whether it's excused or unexcused, right? And so there's like different thresholds of which we intervene as a school. Obviously, if we have unexcused absences, we're following up to find out what was going on. Are children okay? Those kind of things. But that's the state definition of that, right? And so unless there's a medical excuse or like a school business excuse that would really pull away from that, anything over 10 days is considered to be chronic. So the goal is always 95% attendance.
And so what's another way to ask that is, are you concerned about that number? Hey, is it worse than last year, better than last year in terms?
I think we've seen a steady increase in our attendance, our overall attendance rate since COVID. We've been watching it creep up every year. So it's actually been an area of growth for us, and our chronic absenteeism has been coming down. So we're actually seeing that as a positive trend in our data. So I feel really good about that. And there's been a lot of proactive work that's been done around it.
Thank you, Mr. Bartle.
Last one,
Yep.
and this might be more of the advocacy side, but if state report cards were consistent year to year, which I know you have no control of, that would be nice.
100.
But it does speak to the critical nature of them.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, they really are, they're not necessarily designed to give us the best information we need to best serve our kids. They're designed for some other purpose, depending on who's
driving that train. So it's frustrating that so much of our work tends to revolve, as we work with community, revolves around these documents. That we can barely understand too. I mean, they're pretty Byzantine through them, right? I mean, you really need an explainer.
We do a WASB like pre-convention workshop that I went to last year that I want to go to again, but it's like just unpacking this, it takes like 5 experts and a lot of, I mean, it's like, it's very wild.
Thank you for those excellent questions, Mr. Martin. Anything else on school report cards? Thank you, Danica.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to see you. Moving on to item 4A, board legislative update. Nothing fancy on my part to report here. I did hear from a certain member of the school board with whom I am very familiar. At Nicolay, that's my husband.
That you're about Andy.
Anthony. So no, not that guy, my actual husband, to whom I am married, reported to me, and I don't know if you were there, Mr. Martin, that Nicolay adopted a revised version of our voucher transparency resolution.
Excellent.
Yeah, so they did it. I know that the Fox Point superintendent who I saw at the summit said he was gonna take it to his board, but I didn't find it on any of their agendas, so I don't know if the two K-8 partner schools did anything. I did hear back from the Village of River Hills trustee, do they call it the president? Saying that he's talking with his business manager and it's gonna be complicated and take a lot of work to do, so I said thank you, and I have not heard back from Glendale at all to know if they're going to anything on their tax bill for us, but we've done what we can, which is we advocated, we delivered to the municipalities who control this. And we'll see if anything happens. And Nicolay did too, so I'm really pleased about that. Yes. Anyone else have anything related to legislation, advocacy? I know that next month you're gonna be at WASB, so if there's anything that's gonna come up there.
I was thinking we might need agenda time at the next meeting.
Oh,
About that, I haven't had a chance to delve into it to see if there's any that didn't make the cut that we might want to advance.
Sorry, might not be allowed to do that.
You are allowed.
You are, okay.
No, I would just, I did share a summary of the legislative conference.
Right.
So if anybody has questions, you can also log in and see the presentations. If you're a member of WASB, I'm sure WASB has a variety as well. It was a good, insightful conference. I think one of the things that came away from the federal perspective is that there's only been actual 14 days of work committed by
Isn't that crazy?
one of our legislative bodies. So it's really hard to get proactive progress when it's clearly just not a thing, but it's a good stuff. It was a good conference. It's a reasonable summary of my experience. Feel free to.
And I think Assembly Bill 613 and 14, which are the Bill of Rights, those aren't going anywhere right now.
No,
They're stalled.
there is a summary of what they felt like was gonna move forward and what wasn't, but like the math version of Act 20, they really don't perceive it to be well written in any way, shape, or form. They don't see it's gonna move forward. The Teacher Bill of Rights, there was some significant concern brought forward with public testimony, and people listened to that and recognize that there's some things that probably need to be reworked, and also that there are legitimate concerns, right?
The disability advocacy community swarmed. Yeah. Did a great job.
Just another update too, I know last year, the 42% special education funding that was
So
to go through, just so like, I think recommendation wise from the financial community was to look at budgeting around 39%, and DPI just put something out recently that said we should plan for 35. Right. So that supposed increase has now, as it's spread across, because it wasn't
enough money.
Yeah, it wasn't sufficient. It was uncertain. When you spread that across all the district and all the needs that are there, this is what ends up happening, is it gets spread then.
Which is also really interesting that they did have at least reasonable enough numbers from last year to have a better sense of what they're.
Part of it is, I think people are moving to making those high claim costs, because they know they can access the money there, and they weren't making those. claims
Yeah.
before, right?
That's what happens when you've got a resource that we could have. I will somewhat similar, somewhat related. At the national level, one of the things that they were talking about was how districts can apply for earmarks. And Senator Baldwin is the ranking member of the Subcommittee for Labor, Health and Human Services Education Related Needs. So we could ask for funding for a very specific project, like if we drilled down and really figured out what we needed funding for, I feel like there's a few things. We might be able to get some earmarked monies potentially allocated for those particular project.
Interesting.
They said that one of the things to do would be to connect with her office and design a targeted plan so that you could propose the use to the audience that you are needed to present it to. And that would be their way to request the money.
That's good, thank you for that.
The sped funding, the 42% down to 35%, I literally have a reaction of disgust. That I'll say it out loud. And just disgusted by it. They turned it into a political game. They knew that number was gonna come down. Out there touting and bragging about this big growth, and it feels very dishonest to me. I not making any accusations, but you know what I mean. It just playing with kids' lives and the funding for our public schools like that for political gain, I literally feel disgusted. And if they would just fund special education properly. It makes me think this remains an area where a lot of school board advocacy is necessary. And I continue to ask myself, if in the biennial budget, if one representative from every single school board across the state showed up to these joint finance hearings, what a noise we could make. You know? And it's not about political ideology. We've seen it, conservative, liberal, whatever, people on school boards know what matters to our kids, so. It inspires me to act, you know. Anything else? Sorry, Mr. Martin?
Particularly for the River Hills, which sounds like they are less amenable to putting something on the real estate tax bill itself. You might wanna see if you can put together a letter just to be an additional insert.
Well, that's an interesting idea.
Read it, but something at the agenda at Nicolay, looks like they had an insert. I didn't actually go to that meeting, I was at the city one.
Oh, are they gonna ask for an insert?
Anyway, I don't know what they ended up doing, but they had a letter on their agenda. It's like, it's
Okay.
probably gonna be an insert.
Would they make us pay for it? Yeah,
The conversation we had, I think they were more inclined to they were trying to figure out how to do the line on the actual bill, right?
Yeah.
They were not,
Yeah.
they felt the same way we did, which is that an
Yeah.
answer would be easily overlooked.
yeah, so hopefully, but I haven't heard from anyone. You haven't heard from them? No. Okay.
Couldn't hurt to do both.
Yep. Okay, thank you, everyone. Anyone online? Any comments? Moving on to item 5A, student code of conduct roster and proposed activity study. This is about the student code of conduct committee pursuant to our policy, what is it, 5500?
It is policy 5500. I also noted policy around citizens advisory committee, because I think there's some crossover and I don't mean to cause confusion. Part of the policy of 5500 is to really ensure that we have voice and weigh in around our student code of conduct. So just to provide some context, our policy 5500 for the student code of conduct is very general. It's a blanketed Neola policy. Some districts leave that policy as is and then develop the document that goes into their handbook that talks about their student code of conduct. Other districts create that within policy. What that does is help, I believe that work helps to guide our district staff, our district administrators in adhering to a stated philosophy that is reflective of the board, of our community, and what we expect. And so in order to get to that work, it would only make sense to have a committee together that represents different constituents of our school community to help support what that looks like. We have a lot of created materials that have been done at the school level, so Glen Hills has a matrices, Parkway has a matrices. We've gathered some parent feedback on that, which we have pulled in. They're gonna be gathering more parent feedback on that. That's all information that would come to those committees to try to rework those documents into more of a single document, maybe with a middle school and elementary version, because we want to be age appropriate in that understanding. So an overarching school code of conduct. So what I would like this team to be able to do is review the existing code of conduct, look at some of our disciplinary data and related policies. Policies that would be related would be our bullying policy, our anti-harassment policy. Gathering inputs from students, families, staff, and the broader community to ensure that those perspectives are considered. And then really work on making sure that we are identifying areas for improvement to what already exists, so that we have something that we can codify. And then if the idea would be that that would come back periodically for review and maybe reestablishing another committee around that. So committee membership, 4 members currently right now from the staff would be Willie Williams, Ryan Krieger, Michelle Young, and James O'Hagan. Are people who expressed interest in being a part of this community, or part of this committee. Parents and caregivers, we have Kim Brand and Larita Watley have both also expressed interest in joining this group as parents. And then I need to recruit 2 middle school students, and so we're still working through that process. Chris Robinson has offered to be a part of this group as a member of the board. And then I will be seeking 2 other individuals, or another individual from our community potentially, that I know Chris, you gave me some suggestions on some intentional reaches to meet some people. The member responsibilities would be really coming and engaging and representing the interests of all of our students. We'd be looking at meeting dates. One coming up Monday, December 15th, Tuesday, January 20th, Tuesday, February 17th, Monday, March 2nd, Tuesday, April 21st, and then having some additional sessions if they are needed, right? Decisions and recommendations are going to be made through consensus wherever possible. When consensus can't be reached, a simple majority vote would determine the outcome. However, I don't see that. I mean, we'll work through a consensus model on the work that's there. I will bring the information back to the board. My goal would be to kind of work on drafting that and bringing it back sometime in spring, having the board review it, have an opportunity for the board to weigh in, provide suggestions, and then look at trying to finalize something for fall of next year so that we can pull that out for families. So this committee would likely be in place from the start of December through the summer months, and then we would look at wrapping that up. So that's kind of the scope of the work and the thinking around the work and the need to address that through policy, and get some feedback in. The other.
Okay, so before we start discussion, we need a motion if anyone wishes to.
Can you clarify that it's the motion to approve the committee, the membership, which is the specific named people plus the ones who you don't have yet?
I think you would just do it as it's written in the recommended.
I'm just
Never did.
asking what it actually is doing though.
It would be
Okay,
a
that's
motion to
fine.
approve the committee membership and the defined area of activity and study
Okay,
as attached.
I move to approve the student code of conduct committee membership and the defined area of activity study attached to the agenda item.
Second.
And discussion, Katie.
I mean, it seems like really important work to do, and I appreciate trying to get the whole district to have one unified code instead of. As I really don't understand why this district is so divided. But anyway, I like that we're moving towards one unified model, which is like age appropriate adjustments. And if anybody can help me find community members to help fill out the rest of this stuff, so I feel like this is in good hands.
Karen?
So my takeaway from this is that you still have some slots you wanna fill, and you're consciously cultivating those.
Yep.
Connections, and then those would come back to us for further approval, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I would bring that back.
Perfect.
Daniel?
Okay, so today is approving membership, the 4 named members, the 2 parents. And that's it? That's approving membership? The people
The
that,
document is being.
student code of conduct committee membership.
And the defined area of activity study attached to this agenda.
I know, but we're approving members,
Oh, yeah.
right? That's what I'm saying. We're
Yeah.
approving members. There are 4 named staff members, there are 2 parents, and there's Chris. That's who we're approving today.
Yes.
Okay. Not the composition of the 4, 3, 2, 2, right? So, okay,
Well,
anyway, well. that's-
I don't interpret it that way. I would interpret it as we're.
So the committee will exist as long as there are 4 staff members, 3 parent caregivers, 2 students, and 2 community members, because that's what we're approving. Is that right?
I mean, that's what it's in the document, if you wanna approve, cause we're actually bringing those members, like, I'm going to seek to fill those spots, so I don't know if you want to amend the motion to say only the named people within the document, if you feel more comfortable with that. but-
I'm not worried about the language of the
Yeah.
motion, I just wanna be clear on what I'm voting on.
I would be, my concern is I am actively seeking to fill those spots. I don't think there'll be any issue in filling students. I will be seeking a community member to join.
Okay.
And I will do active outreach. My thing is if I'm holding a meeting on December 15th and not all
Right,
those
that's
people
why-
are at the table, I also, like, if the board is not going to approve that, then I need to cancel that meeting and let people know.
Well, that's why I'm just
Yeah.
asking what we're approving, so
Yeah.
I know what we're approving, and
Yeah.
part of my like confusion is that the CAC policy is so rigid, right? So I was,
I was citizen advisory. committee.
yeah, so I was like, well, if there's 4
Oh,
staff
you're
members
counting,
and
yeah.
there's 2 parents and Chris and nobody else, that doesn't meet the CAC.
Yeah.
But we are saying that this committee is exempt from the Citizen Advisory Committee policy. This is where I just wanna make sure I'm clear that this is what everyone is agreeing to, because the policy 5500 is far more vague, right?
It is like- yes.
It's a committee created by the board with this list of people reviewed periodically.
Yeah, and that was really the main question I had, whether you conceive of this as a 9140 Citizen Advisory Committee created in accordance with 5500 Student Code of Classroom Conduct, or is this a policy 5500 committee pursuant to the
exists.
more
That is exempt.
loosey-goosey, kind of like the HGD committee, which is under the HGD policy,
Mhm.
not under the
But that,
Citizen Advisory.
but that's even less, more, that is more explicit, I think, in terms of who creates
Right.
what and who's on there,
Mhm.
right? So this is just super vague. And I mainly was confused because we put the
Yeah,
Citizen
yeah,
Advisory
yeah,
Committee
that's
there.
fair. Mhm.
So I just wanna be clear. You know, like how rigid do we need to? Is that fair? I mean, I think that's fair to ask, right? Are we saying that this committee is exempt from the Citizen Advisory Committee requirements?
Well, I don't know if it's a question of exemption, which is a very specific word.
Okay.
If it's that it's being created under a different policy, which refers to the creation of a committee.
Okay, I can ask it a different way, does the Citizen Advisory Committee policy apply to this committee created under policy 5500 then?
Well, look at 9140, does it require that it applies to every committee created by the school?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, but again, I wanted to be clear on what we're doing, that's all. Cause we created the equity committee, right, and then we came back and
Right,
it
so-
was a citizen.
So the
advisory
language
committee.
I look at is the very beginning, the board in its discretion may establish citizens advisory committees. So the equity committee is in fact a discretionary committee.
Mhm.
The creation of where is it now? We're just going back and forth. The creation of the
We have to create this committee. Student code of conduct.
Student Code of Conduct Committee is not discretionary. it is required by 5,500. Right? Wait,
I mean, I just,
it's mandated by this,
I
it's
don't-
not discretionary.
I don't have, I'm just trying to make sure that everybody is like,
I'm very comfortable with the idea that this is not a citizen advisory
okay,
committee.
that's what, that's
Created
what,
just in a discretionary way, but this is required by policy 5,500. In however, whatever it requires, in the same way we were required to
well, this
create.
requires very little, so in
In
that
this-
case, I,
But it
would have no
requires the
qualms
creation
with-
of a committee.
yeah,
And so that committee is created under 5,500, just like there's a HGD committee, which is created under the HGD policy,
which is
not
created.
under the
by the
citizen
superintendent.
advisory.
Okay, I mean, am I like, does then everybody else gets it? Okay, that works. Then my only question would be, is the policy 5,500 says about who should be on the committee, right?
Parents, students,
Yep,
coordinators,
got it.
school administrators, teachers.
I don't know that you have student service professionals on there, but regardless, it's probably not a requirement, it's pretty vague. My one concern about the committee makeup was like, maybe do you have anyone on there who has like special education expertise or knowledge around like disability and discipline, because I feel like that would be a really important piece to have.
Yeah.
In terms of representing like our community, so that would be something I would hope.
Chris.
Okay, well, okay.
Special education teacher.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
Mr. Carter was a special education teacher. I can also ask
Okay.
a member of our student
Oh,
service team.
okay,
I
sorry,
think
Chris, I wasn't I mean, yeah, right.
Yeah, I think one of the critical pieces is that there at both schools, there's multiple tiered systems of support teams that encompass all of these people who have weighed in on all of the work that they've done. And that work is then coming to this committee, so
Right.
I can ask members of those teams to come
Okay.
to fulfill and make sure that we have voice there. And I think if, I don't see the work of the committee being in isolation. I also feel like that would go back to the school teams that have all of that composition.
Okay. And just so I understand, so the existing code of conduct you're talking about is the matrices, are the matrices? And the policies you mentioned, that's what,
The existing code of conduct that's written in here is basically that it's at the top of that policy.
Okay,
right?
the
There's-
policy,
But
which is-
the policy has no clarification to it.
Got it.
Nor a guiding philosophy that is reflective of our district.
The
I would like to
policy-
shore that up.
yeah, it reflects the laws, the statutes and sites.
That's right,
And
and
what the
that's it.
schools, okay.
And
got
then
it.
what
So that's-
typically ends up happening is then the schools have the autonomy then. To basically develop things that might not always be in alignment. My goal with this committee is to get to alignment.
Okay,
So
yeah, so I just thought I heard you say that it would maybe replace the matrices and be like one sort of, but you're not sure, maybe the committee will kind of work that out.
I think the committee needs to work out what goes into that policy and what sits outside of that policy in
Okay,
terms of
okay.
procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just helps to clarify the scope of the work for me. think I had one more, I'm sorry.
Don't
apologize. Okay, I'm not.
Not apologize.
Yeah, no, sorry. There was one, it was like the final recommendations under reporting and communication. Final recommendations will be presented to the superintendent and shared publicly prior to board review and or adoption. So I just was like. Meaning, cause you said, well, you'll bring it in the spring probably for board review. But what does that mean? Like share it like with the wider public before the board? Or like get feedback like through it, like I'm just, I don't know, that
Just
just.
think attached to an agenda item.
Oh, okay, like noticed and then whatever, okay, got it, thank you. Okay, that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Danielle. I think this is great. I hope you're able to find additional people. I do think it would be great if there were a student services team member who would participate, especially because it's mentioned in the policy. I think that would be great. I had kind of envisioned this as I'm just talking about it as like a administrative guy that would sit at the top and then under that would somehow fall the matrices and stuff. I mean, I don't know what it'll look like, but that's sort of how I envisioned it.
like this kind of idea of a, like what you said, sort of a unified theory
Mhm.
of conduct in our schools. And I too worry greatly about making sure that whatever we come up with involves a healthy dose of awareness around ableism, racism, bodyisms, all the isms that, you know, get overlooked and misunderstood when we look at student behavior and whether it deserves to be punished, all the ways people think about it. So I'll be really curious to see what the review comes. Chris. Okay. Members of the public, any visitors have any comments or questions? Okay, so we have pending a motion by Danielle Bailey with a second by Karen Cronwell to. Oh, thanks.
The not in this session, who got it?
There you
We
go.
can't afford to pay you.
Everyone all in, including Mr. Martin. All right, motion by Danielle, second by Karen Cronwell to approve the Student Code of Conduct Committee membership and defined areas of activity study as attached to the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Anna, and good luck. Operational referendum discussion is our next and final agenda item of substance. All right.
All right, so our last meeting that we had involved our representatives and folks from Baird that came in to talk to you a little bit about operating referendums and just kind of go through that whole process. We showed you some initial baseline financial forecasting that looked at our ongoing need and where we'll be sitting after our referendum falls off after this year. Michelle has prepared some really detailed information for you around our operation, a potential operational referendum ask and sort of forecasting and what that might need to look like for the board's consideration. And just sort of getting a sense of what our different options might be and how that will position the district fiscally in the future. So I will turn things over to Michelle.
Okay,
Thank you, Michelle.
all right, in the board packet, was talking points on the operational referendum discussion and then several scenarios. These scenarios vary slightly from the slide that was presented by Baird based on that update from the state that special education funding will not be the 42%. Moving out several years. So in talking points 25, 26, one scenario that I put in here that does not affect the levy rate. It doesn't affect anything other than fund balance and our revenues. And how much could be levied in Fund 10 versus Fund 38 was the idea of paying down principal on our state trust fund loan, which in doing so, could reduce if we paid 3 million, and this could vary, and we will look at this in multiple scenarios for the next several months. But if we paid out 3 million, we could reduce interest over the life of the loan by approximately 750,000. It would reduce the Fund 38 tax levy because it would reduce those debt payments needed. So then that would free up funds in Fund 10 to levy room within the revenue limit. Reduces fund balance by 3 million. The district fund balance would be reduced from 38.27% of expenditures to an estimated 22% of expenditures, which could cause, it's estimated or projected to cause the need for cash flow borrowing for approximately 4 months out of the year if this was done. Budget assumption update, as I said, the decrease of state categorical aid reimbursement from 39% to 35%. It was 42, but we were budgeting 39. As Anna had said. So I put in several scenarios, operational referendum scenarios for recurring and 4-year non-recurring.
There's a 4.5 million.
I have it on mine.
Okay, I'm thinking. So, in looking at this, you're looking at the current year, 25, 26.
We will go have access to this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And the 26, 27 year going out, so, you'll see that $3 million negative in the 25, 26 year, that's with the idea of putting that towards debt. And the reason it would be, yes.
I just wanna confirm I'm looking at the right forecast. We're looking at the 4.5
Forecasted for
2180.
2184, is that what I'm?
Can you
just wanna
click on
confirm
the-
right thing.
Up the.
I don't have it on the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me see. If I see.
Is it 2184?
That's what I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha,
I
okay,
got it.
okay, good, that's
Yeah.
fine, I just.
We're on 2184.
Okay,
Oh,
thank
you-
you.
I got it now.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so when looking at.
Oh,
the
yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So we're not at this point recommending a 3 million, I just wanted to show you what it would look like and what it would look like as far as the levy rate. I mean, the levy amount, the.
Oh, if
levy
we prepay.
ability to Fund 10, which would add revenues to Fund 10 by prepaying debt and having that amortization restructured for that debt. So this would be with the levy, the referendum dropping off, and then if you scroll down. Then you see here, this is a scenario with a 4.5 recurring referendum, operational referendum. You only, in the 26, 27 year, you see that 4,500,000 under the recurring referendum line here. You want me to? I can.
You got it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Right. Yeah. I guess I should.
You're good there.
Yeah, the 4.5 million here. You don't see it down here because it's going to add to the base, and we'll look at a revenue limit formula and I can, or a worksheet, and I can show you that. So in the following years, it's already built into the revenue limit formula. That's why you don't see it continuing.
Interesting.
And then if you scroll up, this is 4.5 million. Everything else the same, all other factors the same, but a non-recurring. This is not added to the base after the first year. And it's gonna, once it drops off after, 4 years, 6 years, whatever, is asked. Then you would be back to not having that at all. So in looking at this, one of the questions that came up is, why are these deficits different?
Yeah.
Between the two? Do you have that?
The one, tax one?
Mm-hmm, that revenue limit, yeah, okay, so this is the revenue limit worksheet. And each year when you start.
Do we have that?
No, I can share it.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is demonstratively.
yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's hard to see this.
So at the start of when you're budgeting, this is determining the base revenue.
Mhm.
So it has these different categories: general aid certification. Last year was 112,000. Computer aid received, exempt property aid. The tax levy, Fund 10 levy, the Fund 38 levy. And then here, it is subtracting all non-recurring exemptions. To get to, so it is subtracted over 6 million, 6.8 million of non-recurring exemptions. And then here you're left with your base revenue limit base right here. So then if you scroll over to the next page, well, I guess scroll down. So here's our membership numbers, we have the averages, the two, yes.
Can you just pause for?
Yeah.
Refresh our memory, what are non-recurring,
I'll show you.
okay,
Yeah.
That's like a referendum,
Mhm.
well, that's what I,
operational referendum.
okay,
Yeah, I'll
that's
show
what I, okay.
Yeah, it's on the next page. Yeah.
Okay.
So then we have our numbers, of our membership counts. And different averages, different 3-year averages. This is the base 3-year average, and then this would be the new 3-year average.
Okay.
Yeah, and the current average. And then if you, then, you know, we plug in, our values, yeah, equalized values. And then if you go up to the next page or down to the next page, so then right here, you're taking that base revenue number, that 12,278,000, dividing it by the base September membership at 924. And that's giving you the base revenue per member. Then you add on any new amount from the state, the 325. So the larger this number is, the smaller your base revenue per member is going to be. So changes in that after the first year could change that amount as your membership changes with a recurring, because it's part of the base.
So what you're showing us right now is that's the base with a 4.5 recurring.
No, this is the base of this year that
This
we're
year.
in right now.
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
the
okay.
base of this year. So
Okay.
then, you know, here's the low revenue ceiling, 11 million. So our base this year was 13,288 per member.
That's our levy limit, our revenue limit, right?
This was the base revenue.
Base revenue.
Per member.
Okay.
And then they added
Then you
the
add,
325. And we came up to this 13,613,000, and then it was multiplied by the current membership average.
Oh, God, so this is a real crazy numbers game.
Yeah, so then you,
Numbers in several different places.
yeah, so then you get in here to recurring exemptions. So prior year carryover, we didn't have any transfer of service. So that's going to be part of our base next year. And that was the federal impact aid loss. We didn't have any of those. Recurring referendum to exceed. That's where that would be right up here. So then if that's what the taxpayers approved, then the next year would be part of that base. The district, so this is the revenue limit with recurring exemptions. And then non-recurring referendum, or these are non-recurring exemptions. So we have the 4.5 million. And then $498, which were uncollectible property tax, rescinded property taxes that we were able to levy them for. And then we had a negative balance transfer. We had this $2,036 left over in Fund 39, so we transferred it because we don't have any at Fund 39, so they took that off. And then the private school voucher aid deduction and the private special needs scholarships right there. So then those 5,467,266 are added to this 12 million for the revenue limit right here. So that's how, you know, this right here will add back to the base. This does not. So if you had a recurring, it's going to be part of that base calculation for next year. And membership can balance, right?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so our membership, if our membership shifts, we may not, that may have a negative
It could.
impact or potentially a positive impact on us if we were to go to a recurring number versus non-recurring. Because
But
it sits in that.
But with membership potentially dropping as we project, then with a recurring referendum and dropping membership, our levy limit will go down. It's that, I mean,
Well, we're
say
looking
that
at,
again.
we had low membership and it's kind of increased, it increased last year. And then it's set to increase a little bit more than it is, our membership's projected to drop. But not at the point where that recurring would be added on.
But as I look at this, what I'm gathering, big picture is recurring referendum. We are projecting a lower Fund 10 levy limit than with a non-recurring referendum
Over time, yes.
over time.
Mhm.
And
It's not real
But
big,
that's-
but
yeah,
it
but-
is there. Oh, yeah.
So fiscally, if we choose the recurring referendum approach, we are likely to end up with a few $100,000 lower levy.
Can you clarify that? So like every year, or you're saying eventually? This is what is explaining the difference in the projected deficits? Is that on
Yeah,
our
the difference there,
forecast?
when you say a 5 million, can you go back to that?
So it's
Where you
like
can see it most clearly,
$2,
maybe for
yes.
me, is look at
Handy.
Fund 10 revenues.
yeah,
You start seeing a
sorry.
difference in 28,
What was
29.
Well, I got the hard shit.
28, 29.
So if you look at Fund 10 revenues under recurring,
Yeah,
a
you
little
can
bit
click on those
lower
links
than
too,
under
if it lets you.
non.
Okay. 2414, 2467, right? So we're looking
By
at
the time you get to 30, 31, the
75.
difference is.
Yeah, and then just scroll a little bit so I can see
100,000.
these two bottom ones.
21.
Yeah.
Not an enormous difference, but a little bit. That's
Right.
100,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so weighing that option versus any other, scenarios, you know what I mean, any other
Yeah.
factors, like when you're choosing, there's multiple factors when you determine whether you want a recurring versus a non-recurring. That's just one, it's like, yes.
Is there a reason that you selected that high of a number for a recurring?
Well, in looking at these, so we have the 4.5 million, and then I have a scenario with so what we're kind of looking at is. Where do we have small, not asking the taxpayers for too much, but asking them for enough to cover our deficits? When you see red here, like here's the 4.5 million recurring, we're still looking at deficits in future years. And then can you click on the 4.8 and then the 5? So what we wanted to show the board, what if we asked for the same thing that we asked for before and just continued? What would that look like in our budget? Then increase it a little more, what would that look like? Here's 4.8.
And you want these two?
Yeah. So here's the recurring and here's the non-recurring. You're still seeing slight deficits further down, which changes, could be made to, maybe something's gonna come in a little less expensive. You might be able to clear those, they're not huge. And then if you show the 5 million.
So with 5 million is finally the number at which you don't run out of fund balance. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In 5 years.
And,
Oh, no.
our projected student numbers can change too over time as we, if we start increasing students, that's going to bring in additional revenue limit authority. Yes.
How are you guys thinking about the potential for like a capital referendum in the next year or two, and that timeline, and how? I like, it's a whole host of hypotheses, right? Like if it passes, if it fails, what passes? But if something like a capital referendum led to like efficiencies in our budget, not maintaining 3 buildings, etc. Like, is that a scenario that you guys are, or is that too out there, too
I
hypothetical
think
to
it's too late or
consider?
hypothetical to consider. I mean, I think if you're looking at any kind of capital referendum would be, I think one of the criteria that the board and should be setting forward is how do we find efficiencies, right? So there's efficiencies there's opportunities to look at multiple factors around that. So I think knowing what those costs are would be part of looking at capital work at some point in time, would be looking at where those efficiencies sit. So, to the point, like, we know that 4 years out, this is where this takes us, right? And I think that is one of the things that Kevin was stating from Baird is, there's there's more unknown factors after that 4 years out, like different biennium budgets are gonna go through, like the market is gonna do different things, like property values can do different things, enrollment can do different things, our capital needs might shift, right? Like there's all kinds of factors that are gonna play into that, so I think the way out that I see around the recurring versus non-recurring is if you do a recurring referendum, it doesn't adjust to inflation, right? At some point in time, you may need to come back for an additional ask of the community. It may be less. than like what we are gonna do on a every 5-year cycle. And then we know, I think pretty definitively that we have some upgrades to make to our buildings, so there would likely be a capital ask within that mix. You know, kind of. There's voter fatigue, there's more predictability, more control. It's a kind of a more philosophical, I think, of asking the community for what you need when you need it versus a lot more of a long-term ask. And trying to manage and stretch that money as far as it can go.
Yeah, 100% understood. No, I guess I'm thinking about it more as like in terms of being fiscally responsible budgeting in general, not whether you do recurring or non-recurring, but like if we're not thinking about the major savings, and in all of these scenarios, you have to ask for 5 million for 5 years, and then you still are gonna have a deficit and keep going back to ask for larger numbers or the same number. I just wonder if that should be part of the consideration of our overall budget.
But you see, as you're saying, we know that we would still have a need down here, but maybe at that point, we've already addressed that through those efficiencies, so that need may be not as big.
Right, and I would hope
right,
that would be
right.
that those paths would be
Yeah,
aligning and happening at the same time, because I feel like where else you're not gonna find the savings in salaries, because we know that doesn't go down, that goes up, and that's the biggest percentage of our budget, right? So where you've.
Yeah, depending on whether you have efficiencies, if we have declining enrollment, we lose staff, like there's some wiggle room in
Is it St. Augustine that like is the biggest unknown in terms of like our enrollment? Because the enrollment data that the two studies that were done one showed a plateau and one showed a slight decline, but like nothing as intense as what's happening in like rural districts and stuff. So when you talk about enrollment data or biennial budgets, which I was kind of trying to get out of Kevin and Baird, is like, what is that? Like, how do districts really feel the biennial budgets, and has it really had that impact? Anyway, so I understand like all the hypothetical pieces, but yeah, is the enrollment data piece like is the feeling of uncertainty there, like the potential for this St. Augustine, or is it just more like the general enrollment?
In general,
Decline.
enrollment shifting by 10 students back and forth can change our outlook pretty significantly, right? So steady enrollment in a hypothetical study done on birth rates and stuff, kind of taking a look at that is going to show a steadiness, but that steadiness still has variances.
There's one that showed decline too. I'm not saying steady, but
and one thing it's not showing, one thing that I've tried to build in here conservatively but plan for is with our revenues, open enrollment in students, the district's not taking new open enrollment in. So that's declining, those revenues, open enrollment out, we've seen open enrollment out increasing by a few students every year. So building that in here, and then we've also seen voucher students increasing. So building that into here as well as, as part of the tax levy in those expenditures too.
Yeah, I think, the SNSP and the vouchers, any enrollment out of our district so that we're not capturing resident students is going to be, and right now where our class sizes sit, when we looked at open enrollment projections and where this gets tricky is that our class sizes aren't we're not at a place where we'd be looking at accepting students to get to a healthy class size, right? It would be more like we were pulling students in, but it's not gonna help us significantly, right?
Thanks. Yeah, and can you go back to that revenue limit sheet real quick? That one I sent you, yeah. This one. Yeah, if you scroll near the bottom. I wanted to show you why we're here, a little bit up, a little bit more, right there. So when we arrive at this revenue limit number, the maximum number between state aid and our property tax levy, here's our general aid that is much higher, and then the exempt computer aid and state personal property aid. So those come off of this, and what's remaining is what you have available to levy in the funds that are within the revenue limit. So here's what Fund 10's levy this year, and here's Fund 38. So what I'm saying is, when we reduce
Yeah.
principal and interest payments due to Fund 38, we
Right.
can increase that Fund 10 levy.
Yeah.
So you're seeing part of that in those scenarios.
Have you done this? This would be a lot of work probably to do
Yeah.
this for the various scenarios though, so that you could see what those numbers are.
The Baird formula, I plug these in when I wanna see exact and levy rate, the
Okay.
Baird. Projection model has the revenue limit in there, but I always do this before presenting the budget to the board. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
Because this is exact, I wanna go through and make sure that we have this exact. And then in scenarios too, like if you had asked how, you know, how would lowering the levy by 1 million affect our levy rate? I would plug that in and see what that looks like. Mhm.
I wanna make sure everyone has it.
Yeah.
Let's come over to Chris, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. This was a really good illustration. Thank you.
Same.
I think looping back to what Danielle had talked about with regards to a capital referendum, I mean, my feeling is we just didn't have the time in this, like from the 2-year referendum and the work that we had to do to heal and come back whole. I think at this point, we just need to look at what do we need for the next 4 years seems to be the most reasonable window, right? Where we can forecast out sufficiently. And then within that 4-year window, I would hope and expect that that is what we're doing, is working toward that capital referendum question, right? And figuring it out, how we're doing that. But I guess that's been my understanding, is kind of, that's where we're all looking. Perhaps I've been misunderstanding the science, but
Well, that was my understanding too. I was asking more about how they. That's my understanding.
and I think you can only do the math on the known. I really appreciated that you did all these different models. It seemed to me that the ask, you know, if we go in, if we move forward and make a determination, it seemed to me that the ask that needs to be asked is really obvious, and it's because that keeps us
Solvent with a
Solvent and
relatively
healthy.
healthy
Yeah.
fund balance at the end of 4 years.
right.
Right, yeah.
I did have that question. I think I broached it with 3 of you, but not wholly. It's just, you know, our fund balance policy holds us to 10%. And as we discovered this time in our last meeting, that's really not a high enough bar.
Well, I don't think it's a limit. It's a minimum.
So I guess I would be more comfortable with the potential of revisiting that policy to lift the minimum.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be responsible so that we didn't accidentally get to a position.
And Michelle, your understanding is once we hit that 22%, we're in a place where we would need cash flow power.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
So
for
that
about
was,
4 months, so kind
Yeah.
of working.
So once you fall under 22% fund balance,
Well, it
you
really,
have to start doing short-term borrowing. Pretty
it's
much.
just, it's. Glendale-River Hills does not receive much state aid. A lot of districts who receive state aid and don't have the high voucher payments and open and roll out. Would receive aid payments in September. Special education handicapped aid starting, I believe, in October or November. And then large aid payment usually, depending on how much you're aided, but in December. Glendale-River Hills, the amount we would get in equalization aid in September is reduced. As well as our handicap aid, those things are being reduced by the state, by the DPI. To pull back some of those the voucher aid amounts. So we're seeing very minimal amounts in the fall up until we don't really start seeing significant revenue until January. So reducing our fund balance, you know, roughly the 22% would require us to most likely to fund cash flow borrow for about 4 months. So I'll be working with a gentleman from Johnson Bank to kind of can't really forecast. I know they're not gonna give me interest rates for next fall, You know, but what would it look like? What would that cost be? You know, and then that offsetting savings from paying down debt, where is that good
Well,
spot?
And that was one of my questions,
Mhm.
was like, what is the cost of, to me? It would
Mhm.
seem like the cost of cash flow borrowing compared to the savings of the tax, long-term tax. Or interest rate savings would still be relatively nominal. Like if we had to cash flow borrow, that interest paid would be much.
Well, it really
For the
depends on what that
savings.
interest rate, what the interest rates are. You know, we're paying 6% on a state trust fund loan. Would we be able to get lower interest rates? And maybe we are the first year, but not after. You know what I mean? We have to kind of,
It's a risk.
yeah.
So then how would we possibly make this determination for this year? Or would you look at paying down, if you were forecasting paying down $3 million or a large portion of the fund balance, how would you forecast that? And when would you plan to do that?
It would be after April. That we can pay principal between January, additional principal between January and August. With a 30-day notice to the state trust fund board to let them know that, and then we could request to have our amortization schedule realigned, readjusted, or a new one made. But in my conversations with Johnson Bank, I hope to come to, start running those scenarios. I can look at what we paid in interest. Last year, we cash flow borrowed in December and January. We had the line of credit with Johnson Bank and we did cash flow borrow for 2 months. So, that can be projected based on what we think interest rates are gonna be. So it is a.
And the 3 million is just the number you chose, right?
Yeah, I
It
wanted
could
to
be
see
two,
what
it
that
could
would
be
look
one.
like to
Yeah.
our levy, what would be comfortable, we could cash flow borrow for a few months. With the line of credit.
Right.
I know in the past, the district had been paying. I think roughly 150,000 for cash flow borrowing, but it was being done. It was borrowed in the fall and not repaid until August each year. So with the line of credit. We had interest, a higher interest rate when we had the money, when we had it pulled from it, but then we had a very small payment. When we weren't pulling for that amount.
Right.
It was nothing like the previous.
Smarter move.
It was good, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for approving.
So thank you for educating us.
Anything else?
No, I mean, I think your feedback earlier with the questions was meaningful, which is like, this is an estimate, it's an idea, and it continues to be reassessed, so it would not be.
Danielle?
I feel like you've given this to us before, but like the actual property tax impact, so maybe this is done because the mill rate. Or like, is that, can I figure it out if I just know the mill rate or?
She gave us the projected number.
I know that's why I'm saying this is the dumb question, is the figuring out the property tax, like that I will pay as a homeowner, you do the calculation.
Yeah.
6.75 per $1,000.
At 5 million.
Yeah, 5 million. That's what it is.
Per $1,000 of my home value.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay, so if I just say, okay, per 100, 200, 300, whatever, that's, okay, that's.
And then K8, the state has been, part of the budget, the state budget has been increasing school levy tax credits. So municipalities put those on, in our districts, it's the K8, it's not Nicolay, but so you'll see a reduction on your property tax bill possibly. Of that.
So I guess what would help me at a later time maybe is you could help me if I do this, the numbers is to understand the property, like the actual like property tax impact in conjunction with like whatever the Nicolay mill rate, like that impact is. If we like under 5 million or like even like a different number,
Yeah, and I think I had that in.
I know, I feel like
We had that in a
given
presentation maybe with the budget.
Okay.
workshop.
You had a tax
Yeah.
bill, you have a tax bill, and that was part of something.
Okay, so maybe I just go
Yeah,
back
we
to
could-
the materials,
Oh,
I'll
we could
find it,
yeah.
maybe you could help me, cause I'm not
Yeah.
confident in my.
Yeah, we can put it,
Yeah.
if you look at,
Math
if you look
skills.
at like, if you look at the tax bill, you should be able to see that, and then I think that property tax credit is gonna be somewhat varied based on what they
Mhm.
decide to do with it, so. You know, when we look at that, it's sort of like home value, mill rates.
Mhm.
And then you also have that property tax, so that 6.75 might actually be a little bit less essentially because of the.
Plus Nicolay's, right, is it, so it's.
And that'll be a
Nicolay's,
second
Glendale.
line item.
Yeah.
So that, so I guess I'm
Separate.
trying to like, what I wanna wrap my head around is like actual impact to a resident, right, like financially, so when I get that tax bill, like what is that sticker shock gonna be?
Mhm.
And then thinking about that, like how much does it change if you increase your ask from 5 million to something else? Like what, if you're going to go so far as to say, give us more money for this for this amount of time, I'm just curious, like. If the shock goes like way up with a lot more, cause I'm just not like, I'm not math minded.
It
So maybe
would,
that's
Here,
a
want me to
piece that.
project
Yeah,
that?
well, what I see here is the difference between the 4.5 and a 5 million ask is 19 cents.
Yep.
Is a mill rate of 19 cents, which means $19 per $100,000 in value.
Yep.
Right, so if you own
Got
a
it.
$400,000 home, you're gonna pay $80 more a year if we do a $5 million referendum than if we do a 4.5 referendum. So that's the kind of difference we're talking about.
So 5 to 6, say, you.
So 5 to 6, you would be adding 160,
So this is.
right?
And we're back.
And one thing that happened too last year,
Uh-huh.
is the city of Glendale
Right.
reassessed.
Right,
So it wasn't like growth, it was just people's property values went up. Some of them, because they were reassessed along with,
right.
our
Right, and yeah,
referendum, and it hit,
Yeah.
Commercial went down.
Right,
That was the big, that was the piece that we
Yeah.
didn't expect.
Mhm.
But yeah, so my property value assessment went way up, so
Mhm.
my taxes went up, it was much more than our levy. It's because my value was so much higher, but
Yep.
I remember there was an effort to blame our levy for the massive increase in, say, my property taxes.
Right.
But my property taxes went up significantly because my home assessment value went up so much. And partly because of our levy,
Right.
but not only
Well,
because of our levy.
and a big part of it truly was that the shift from the commercial taxpayers to the private taxpayers was unexpected.
Right.
You know, so the state gets their money no matter what, that taxable is gonna come out no matter what, and a lot of it shifted to residents.
Right, and do we know if that's like to be anticipated again, or that's a one-off, like is there a way to?
I don't think they're doing reassessments this year.
Does that, like a.
Right, so if you look at your tax bill, like you look at that
Yep.
section up there, so your estimated fair market value, and then in the 5 million scenario, it would be 0.00675, right?
Yeah.
Correct, Michelle?
Yep.
And then it would be, you'd multiply that and then minus your tax levy credit, and then that's your individual levy for the Glendale-River Hills School District, right? And then for Nicolay, you would have to do that portion, right? Times their mill rate, right?
Yeah.
And then they don't get a tax credit for them, so whatever your fair market value is times their mill rate, which I think was like $4 and some change, 69 cents, so it'll be 469 times your fair market value, that they figure that out.
So this tax bill is from the year when we had both the 1.5 million.
Yes,
And so this was a 6 million levy reflected in that levy rate of 758.
yes. it is.
So even if we levy 5 million, even if we were to adopt a $5 million referendum, if let's say voters approve that, this mill rate will still be lower
Yes,
than
Much
last
lower.
year's. I mean, the mill rate is coming down. Even with even if we went to 6 million, it would still be a little bit lower than that.
We
We
were
were
at
a little
six,
above
to say
six.
6 this
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
So go up a little bit more, but. Down from this, and then if you look at historical years, it's pretty much, it would still be pretty much in line. those previous years.
We've been stuck somewhere in 6 and some change, right, for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about the mill rate. I mean, the mill rate difference between 4.5 and 5 was much less than I expected. I don't know why. I thought it would be a bigger difference, but it's like $80 for a $400,000 house, $40 annually, so. Yeah, my head goes where yours goes. 5 million seems like the right number that leaves us with still a pretty relatively low fund balance after the end of 4 years, right? Well, the deficit spending, but our fund balance is still only,
Mm-hmm.
where is it? 5 million non-recurring. After 4 years, it's at 19.5, right?
Right.
Which is still a little low if we're trying to avoid short-term borrowing.
Mm-hmm.
Those calculations I'm not able to make, but I mean, it's always that balance, and I'm thinking about that with the idea of prepaying. I'm a curtailer. I don't like debt, but I,
Yeah.
but I worry about paying down the debt so much that we run out of money and have to do short-term borrowing. So I know you're working those numbers up where the interest rates make sense.
And
on
even
any
the
given rate.
timing of when it would be paid, you know, maybe it's not 3 million all at once, but
Sure.
5 or 2 or something, but at what time of the year?
I think the critical piece is like an aggressive stance of taking to pay down that debt where we're able to.
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if it means we can't pay this much because if we short-term borrow, we're kicking ourselves.
right, we're just.
And we're recycling that loop, then we've got to make like swift financial decisions around that, but I
Yeah.
think. The aggressive nature of paying that down because it then frees up money that we can levy into 10 and get out of 38.
I don't think there's any crystal ball for interest rates for the next few years.
Like
I think it's just an absolute mystery. I mean, we can
Right.
sort of get, we don't know if there's gonna be a new chair of the Fed, we don't know.
Yeah.
What in the world is, in my opinion. I mean, maybe some people think they have a crystal ball. But thank you for the factoid about the fund balance dropping under 22%. I like the idea of revisiting them and setting an appropriate fund balance goal that would allow us to avoid in the long run, short-term borrowing. That's totally sensible. So maybe we can get that. I don't know that it's essential for us to adjust that policy in order for us to make decisions on
Sure. Like, it's
referendum,
not time
but
essential necessarily.
yeah, so that's what I was thinking about. Are you guys thinking 4-year referendum is more sensible than a 5-year? Do you have any opinions?
Kind of, there's, 4 versus 5.
Yeah, I thought we had talked about
Well,
5.
I think that so we brought up 5
Uh-huh.
the last meeting, and his response was that 4 years is too biennium budget. You wanted
Yeah.
time, you wanted
Yeah.
a referendum to
Got
kind of be in line with the biennium
Yeah.
budget, otherwise you might
Yeah.
accidentally.
Yeah.
You also have to think about elections, like
Yeah.
what year are the big
Yeah.
election years, that's just kind of doesn't have this, but, can I just ask,
Mhm.
related to your 25%, if that were the case and we revised the policy, would that change? I don't know, any of your, like, would that change how you look at how much we ask for, or what numbers might change with repaying our debt kind
I
of
think it
deal?
would change, you know. Like, one of the things too was trying to get to how much debt can we prepay? Fund balance, the policy right now, you know,
Yeah.
stays
Right.
10%, you know, if it was higher, if it, 25%, then I think.
It would change our
we would need to-
motivations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
it would,
Well,
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
yeah,
It would, I mean, it's
And then-
mandatory at some level, right? But it would change the way you would manage.
yeah, but then
In the business
again,
office.
looking at the offset, how much interest will we pay if we needed to cash flow borrow? Versus how much interest are we saving on the loan?
Right.
Closer.
So I did a thing, I went through did you guys see this data on pass fail rates on referenda?
Yeah, thank you so much for.
Yeah, it was really helpful, and I saw CISA had some CISA 1 area operational referenda. So I did a thing, because we got all the union schools, but they didn't organize them by cohort. So I Googled and I found a list of the 10 union districts, and you can see my carefully number sorted. Yeah, I did a thing, I organized them and I looked at them by cohort, by union sets, and this is what I discovered. There is one union set, that's what I'm calling it,
one group of school districts that has never failed a operational referendum.
That's ours.
That's us. We're the only ones. Our partner districts, we've always passed operational referenda. No, that was a
Oh.
capital.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, they've,
okay.
that was a failed capital, but on operational referendum, we are 13-1. Our districts have passed 3 each, plus we did a 4th, which was our emergency one. And our community came through strong on that. So I'm really excited by that. That just gives me a lot of confidence knowing that if we ask for what we need, which I love the way you say that, if we ask for what we need for our students, our communities around here know what matters, which is funding schools for our kids. So I was really excited by this because you look at these like statewide percentages and it can be really misleading, you know? Because we're 13 love. I mean, there are districts where 3 of the high schools have never gone to referendum. And when you look at their partner districts that have gone to referendum, high fail rates, right? Those are communities with big pockets of, you know, pockets of schools where they're having trouble passing referendum, but we're not one of those communities. So I felt really good doing this. If you want to look at my chicken stretch, you can. You know, there's one cohort, they've passed 0 referendum, failed 2. There's one that's 10 and 11. Most of these districts, they have really high fail rates. And one of the reasons I suspect, I hypothesize that they have so many referendas is because they keep failing and they keep having to go back and ask again and again. So just for what it's worth, throw that out there. We have a strong, loving community that loves our kids. So I think my own view is looking at all this information, knowing we have a strong business team, we're crunching the numbers, we're trying to pay down our debt, we're working on fund balance. I feel really, really good about just asking for what we need, doing it in the spring, seeing what happens. We have the fall to try again if something goes wrong. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. And just being able to see you crunch through these numbers really helps me and pushes me towards the non-recurring referendum.
Yeah.
In my mind, you know, because we just don't know. We gone around. Everyone had a chance. Anything else?
I mean,
You don't have to.
well, okay, so.
We've got time. We're ahead.
Well,
We have
don't, now
5
you
minutes.
jinxed it.
And then I see Mr. Martin starting
Okay.
to
Well, just
wiggle,
quickly,
so.
in the ask for what we need, right? So that's what I'm like, so I'm looking at the way that our expenditures increase over the years and it looks like about, like you add about $600,000 of expenditures every year. And do you feel like pretty confident in that? Like, is that the, like, I'm thinking about it and like, does that mean we're able to keep doing our, you know, give the meaningful market value adjustments, you know, stay competitive in terms of benefits and salaries, as well as like accounting for inflation and I don't even know, maintenance, you know, like all of the things
That's
that-
accounting for inflation
Uh-huh.
and then. The thought too, we often see, you know. Even here, we saw last year, when people retire, you know, with multiple years of experience, maybe they were at the higher end of the scale. Then that somebody else comes in, you know, below that amount, so you decrease their salaries for that area, freeing up some dollars that, you know, are paid out to, for raises. You know, into that, so it's kind of, what are we normally seeing?
Yeah.
I would say, looking at that, there's increases in employees, but then you could see savings that would free up dollars for something else or reduce those costs.
The other
Yeah.
elephant in the room is capital changes.
Yeah.
You know, we've got 3 properties.
Yeah.
Capital changes could easily change the cost matrix for our district.
Yeah, I was just trying to understand how you're, what all the components going into
Yeah.
that, just adding 600,000 about every year.
It's actually adding different percentages to different areas of the budget, various percentages, not just a straight.
Right.
It
just
may
ends
look
up
like
being
that, it
about-
does,
right,
it ends
the
up
same.
being that,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And you know, there could be a big curriculum initiative, or maybe we plan for a curriculum initiative and then, you know, comes in at a lower cost or a higher cost. Those things could change too, so as you go out, it's less. It's more projection than what you actually.
More guesswork.
Yeah.
Yeah, guess.
Yeah. But
More
yeah,
noise.
It sounds like you're fairly confident that the 5 million is the ask for what we need for the next 4 years, meaning you will have to ask again at the, for that, okay.
I'm sitting here thinking about the hurricane projections. That's what these numbers are like, right? Closer here and then it just becomes sort of like a.
Yeah.
More and more guesswork. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Martin, I think you have some questions.
I have one question and I'll rifle off a few comments. And if you don't know this one off the top of your head, don't worry about it. And I was curious on the levy calculation worksheet there, the energy efficient net exemption, is that the one that is going to be zero for the next 1,000 years?
I think so, where no new districts can apply.
Yes.
Then just curious about that one. And as a Walker era budget veto that so you don't get anything for 1,000 years. And then just a few rifling off comments. I would propose you ask for additional money in the referendum to pay down debt and potentially do. And as part of your pitch to the community is you want to pay down debt faster and hopefully save taxpayer money in the long run, which is something I'm complaining to the city of Glendale about them not doing. Yeah.
So you think we should ask for more specifically for debt payments?
That is what I would do and, but I'm not the board, so you all honestly have to make that tough decision and feel the nasty calls that you'll probably end up getting. And then also along the lines with the property tax assessments being a large part of the variability. Few of the people that I have as clients, and since I'm an accountant, they had their property reassessed like 40+% upwards. So I'm sure that's a lot of the complaints you got last year.
Yep.
And I also am in agreement on the going for capital referendum for the buildings. Ideally, as soon as you have a land available, since I'll say maintenance. And then a few years back, and I would go and look at the actual meeting, but Nicolay doesn't record their meetings. And I asked the Nicolay board about what they thought would happen with the St. Augustine going in and enrollment, and Superintendent Greg Kvara mentioned at the time that for his discussions with them, they were looking primarily to get students from the city of Milwaukee. I don't think they necessarily refuse Glendale residents, but that's not their.
Yeah, right. Their target audience is.
I imagine them in competition with St. Eugene more than with us.
So Eugene is its own community.
I
So I'm just, the reason schools like St. Augustine exist are to target very particular districts.
And also along with that, St. Eugene, they're one of the churches that have a church there in addition to the school. A lot of their congregation has individuals that was the school.
Yeah.
Then if you do end up getting a referendum passed and don't need to levy all of that, you can always choose to levy less. But
That's right.
then made a comment about Fed chair, his time is up in January, so there's going to be a new Fed chair regardless shortly.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
And then I had made a comment last time about the mill rate and for Nicolay. Wisconsin has a sheet that you can look up to see the mill rates of everyone, and Nicolay as a whole is the third highest mill rate. And but then if you control for just Glendale-River Hill section, it goes down to about 10th highest mill rate in the state of Wisconsin.
For a K-12.
For a K-12. Still high, but not third.
Do you know where we sit for K-8 districts? Did you look that one up?
That one, I would have to look up the individual Okay, invited for the gates.
Not asking,
Yes,
just curious.
that's all I got, so.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Anyone online have any questions or comments?
Nothing in the chat right now.
Open. So the idea is that you're gonna come back to our next meeting, right, with a recommendation on a potential resolution for us to consider?
Yes, we'll be talking about a potential resolution, and looking at whether or not the board wants to move forward with that in our next meeting. I think there's some thinking about what that amount looks like. I'm hearing very loudly, clearly from the board that they're considering that resolution should be something that probably faces a non-recurring versus recurring. Yeah, I don't know, I mean, that you guys can. I mean, that's the board's pleasure, right, when you vote on that resolution, but that's kind of what as we're thinking about drafting.
I think the education. For me, the education from Baird was really insightful and helped clarify why one over the other makes a lot of sense.
I lean heavily to non.
Right, well, I've never seen a recurring that like high, so that's also like part of why so that's why it wouldn't maybe make sense for us, because we couldn't do a lower recurring referendum, right? So I think maybe it makes more sense for districts that are like secure-ish and need like boosts, but yeah, straw poll would say I think non-recurring for.
So, any other questions or point of clarification that people have for the board?
I would wade in to what Mr. Martin, or lean in to what Mr. Martin suggested, and I would wonder what maybe 5.5. 6 makes me squeamish.
I mean, but 5.8.
And I'm not trying to build I'm not trying to ask for just busy work, but I mean legitimately to his point of structuring the budget to include large students and payout. That could be.
It's for a long time, we could say we were the one district that didn't have that, now we do, so. It's kind of a point of pride, that be nice time.
Yeah, it was always a point of pride I didn't share because it meant we haven't passed a capital referendum to update our buildings, right?
Yeah.
That was, it was,
There's almost a cheap talking.
When you think about amount, like last time we came to one with the community survey at our backs, kind of knowing what the community was game for and what they weren't, and we adjusted based on that. We don't really have that right now. So I just sort of wonder how you think about what the right number is without that community input piece.
I think going back to the statement of looking at what we need, right? We don't want to over ask, right? And to Wayne's point, I mean, you can always under levy them, right? But it is something that we want to try to move that number and get it as tight as we possibly can to needing to go to that next ask, right? Because that's a way to look at how we do that with the community and be respectful of people's money and tax dollars, right? I think one of the things to take into consideration is we're dropping to a $6.35 mill rate this year, and so that's going to come up a little bit too. So there's going to be that kind of yeah. So I think I think as we look at putting that forward, we need to play into that. I think we know what the need is. If the community doesn't support us in April, we know that they're not willing, that we would have to look at varying that number, right? And I think a survey is going to be a predictor, but our last survey told us it would pass.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I wasn't suggesting, I was just curious how you think about it. I mean, I guess there's a lot of balance and they put on the taxpayers and respect for them, understandably so. Right, Carla also highlighted how our community supports our schools, and so what we need might not meet what we want for our students, right? What more So I understand that,
Mhm.
but I would just push you to balance that with like, this is what we need. And maybe it's paying down debt is the reason you ask for more, or maybe it's our students actually deserve more, this is what we need, but wouldn't it be
Mhm.
nice if we were able to do, did it, whatever, you know, so I think that there's like, those are conflicting needs and perspectives, but if we have a supportive community, and I don't have like, I'm not set on any number, so please know that it's
Mhm.
not like,
Mhm.
that's not what it
Yeah.
is, I just am like, we're set, the way it is so tight is like, could something still put us in distress? Or, you know, like, could we pay our staff more, and could we increase, you know, could we close, like, I'm just thinking about dreaming a little bit, because we do have a supportive community.
Yeah, and when go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know, weighing that with, you can ask 2 questions in a year. If it's a no the first time, that gives one more time to be able to pass an amount that the tech, you know, to take another amount to them. And see if that passes so that you can meet your basic expenditures. So I think those are kind of the big way to when it's a conservative number.
I like the idea of where my head just automatically goes is, I like the idea of a modest. What's $5 million isn't modest, but you know, a more modest ask than we might want, because I continue to dream of coming back with a capital. And I don't wanna over ask or be perceived as over asking, when in my dreams, we come back in a couple of years and ask for the buildings we need. You know, the transformation we need.
And then we
Which is
just
gonna be-
potentially find that extra
Just-
money.
I just wonder what our community would consider over asking, if it's, you know, if we're able to talk about it. And how it benefits our staff, our students, et cetera, you know, and maybe that's how we talk about the 5 million. I'm not saying like it needs to be more, but I'm just saying like, are we dreaming for our students, or are we being so cautious because we're afraid we have 2 shots at it? So. That's all.
I think, you know, if we had a way to paint a really clear picture of what that bid was, it would be a more comfortable ask for me. I think the other question would be, it was a heavy lift to educate the public and get information out there. So do we have things in place, or do you feel like you have potential partnerships or need potential partnerships for a spring referendum?
I got this.
I mean, I think we have to move and work the avenues of education that we've worked in the past. I don't want to, I would like to keep costs as minimal as possible to the district to go to a referendum. It's, you know, I mean, there's.
Right.
I mean, there's work, like if we're gonna be considering capital work, there's expenses that lay there. I'd like to not incur those here and be reasonable with people's money. In that process.
So your plan is to keep it internal and
Yeah.
And you've done this before. And this is an easier lift. And I will say that if we do vote on something at our next meeting, we'll be voting a month earlier than we have to. Right? We're not butting up to the deadline, which is fantastic. So if, for instance, we were not able to agree and weren't able to adopt a resolution, it would be okay. We could continue discussion and try again and discuss further at the next January meeting. But if we were able to adopt a resolution in December, that would give Anna an extra month and us an extra month to start rolling out and marketing and talking about, you know, right, we don't market, we don't say yes or sorry. Informing and
More time for
educating,
the yes committee.
informing and educating.
Anna, you did a great job laying the educational foundation. I don't think that lift will be as heavy, because now you have community people and families who.
I think there's more clarity too about where money is sitting in our budget in terms of, like, I think Michelle and I can be very adequate at talking about the percentages that are going towards staffing, the percentages that are going towards special education. But, you know, being able to have more clarity for the community. And then I think also the big piece of this is looking at what is that inflationary discrepancy along with our transfer to special education, along with voucher, really kind of totals up to close to
That's
5
exactly
million.
what I was gonna
Right.
say, that when you take
Yeah.
the $3 million inflation loss plus the 2 million. I mean, when you add those three up, you actually end up at about 6 million. Which,
So the ask is maintenance then primarily, it's
Yeah,
actually not
it is
as
maintenance.
it's maintenance.
But still considering the fact that we are in a belief system that the type of programs that we're offering students, the class sizes that we're maintaining, and those pieces, you know, are educating our students in the way they need to be educated, right? And I think like when you start to think about like additional things, it's, you know, do you want to expand world language? Like that comes with a cost. Do you want to expand, I don't know, you want to offer different electives at the elementary school for students, or do you want to add different electives here and that? You know, I mean, those are areas of when I look at, you know, kind of comparably what we're offering as a middle school, we're a pretty comprehensive middle school, and we offer pretty comprehensive arts programming for our elementary school, right? So unless there's gonna be very like a great change in that, I would say maintenance is what we need to be at.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I would just raise the additional question, you know, again, that I alluded to before. What if any needs do we have to help all of our students become proficient readers?
Yep, 100%. I think too, like taking a look at where some of those curriculum needs are,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that, I mean, those are really excellent things. If we know that, you know, highly prized curriculum that's been approved through the state through Act 20, we don't know if that money's gonna be free yet or not. Like,
Yeah,
do we think about what that ask means and how that impacts what we're asking?
and I also feel like there's been a good amount of community education about reading.
Yes.
And so I think there's a way to build on that.
Anything else? Super helpful discussion for me.
Not big. What are you looking at me? It's very
Yeah.
cool.
It feels like it's a heavy thing. That's why I gave each of you a lifesaver. I was actually gonna eat them all myself, but then I counted them and realized I had enough for all. We're all lifesavers. It ran out before it got to us. No, it's a expression of gratitude. You're the lifesaver. This is from Estrida, right? We used to put lifesavers in teacher goodie bags because you're a lifesaver, yeah.
True.
All right, thank you. Thank you for all the projections and the education. Board preview and planning is our next agenda item.
I'm really unstable today.
An unstable genius.
One of the key board planning and review pieces that I wanted to just bring up to the board is, I know we had a scheduled workshop for the 10th. Is that right, Diana? So for the 10th, and I know I had kind of you know, asked board members individually to send me things that they were interested. It looks like it kind of came back in the realm of us considering the evaluation system, or looking at sort of the process involved with developing administrative guidelines to accompany our policies. Due to the short turnaround time.
Is that doable?
I think administrative policies, it feels like something that we need to think out a little bit more, and I'd like to pull in somebody with different expertise to run that workshop. So I would like us to have an opportunity to look at the evaluation system and look at what that means.
Me too.
And I think if the board is comfortable with moving forward with that, and just thinking about timing too, my evaluation would be something we'd be considering. Administrative contracts, Michelle's probably already started working on them at this point. Like, those are gonna be things that are going to start turning. We're at that point in the year, so I think having that down and having something concrete would be a good way to spend our time just doing some learning around that, so we could bring that back to the board meeting in January.
I was thinking it would be a good opportunity as part of that, because it's all linked, right? Is to revisit our KPIs. Right, because that's foundational to the evaluation process. School improvement plans, would we be able to look at those as part of this, or is that,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
So really, the school improvement plans are nestled into the work of our of our KPIs.
Right.
They're nestled under the pillar of whole child growth and success. So Willie and I like have like a separate link and that sits in there
Right,
that
right.
they're working through stuff with their staff, so I can see that work in there. So
Okay, okay.
that looks like.
So, and then I was thinking, cause this had originally been, scheduled as Danielle was thinking about, board self-evaluation, board evaluation. So I wonder if we can build that into some of what we
Yeah.
talk about. Because we've never really, we kind of ran out of time and chances to ask, where do we fit in the journey of our strategic plan and KPIs? Like in a very concrete way. So I don't know what that discussion looks like. This is not my area of expertise.
So one of the things, Jenica, Kelly and I have been at in training that we've been taking through ASA and WASA around the new principal evaluation system and coaching principles. And part of that is looking at how, providing productive feedback to people, as well as looking at the new evaluation system that they're developing for administrators. So I think maybe even just having a window in on what do the different evaluation tools look like in our district. And then what was the evaluation tool we used last year for my evaluation? What was the evaluation tool we used for the board? And just.
Oh, that's right. There was a WASB form we filled
Yeah.
out.
So I think taking a look at those tools and then in relationship to our KPIs, like there's been intentional work around the administrator evaluation and teacher evaluation to align those to our KPIs. So maybe looking at the superintendent and board tool and thinking about what could alignment look like there. Does that sound like a?
Yes.
I like that. Okay.
And maybe like formalizing or starting to formalize, crystallize a process for board like the board evaluation, so it's like, okay, we're gonna do it every year, whatever, like what part of it's public, what part of it, yeah, so that we're accountable to it
I think
as well.
really good.
I keep forgetting how close we are really to scrambling. I mean, right, this is really our first year that we're not just like, scrambling to catch up and put our basic ducks in a row,
So
so.
one step away from scrambling.
From a board perspective, like, I have to remind myself, the reason we're still a little bit behind on this is because we have spent the last year and a half still just like, going full steam ahead to fix a lot of really critical things, so it's exciting to imagine also getting this in line and building in some self-evaluation.
And then big events coming up next week. We have another parent university coming up on personal finance. So we have somebody who works in the finance industry who will be coming in and just speaking to families about, personal finance and budgeting. And so that will be happening on Tuesday the 9th. In addition to that, the Nicolay Winter all band kind of situation is happening at Nicolay that evening at 6:30. So
Is that another 14-hour concert?
it's like one of those where they spend almost the entire day there.
Oh, right.
And then they do a
together.
performance in the evening, right?
Oh.
So it's a big day for our music students and a performance for them in the evening. And then there's also a PTO Foundation coming up on Thursday the 11th.
Anything else?
Shout out to the PTO for their Parkway movie night. I know that happened a little bit ago, but it was.
Oh yeah, the Secret Santa gift.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's
Secret
right.
gift shop.
Gift shop. I'm volunteering Saturday mornings. Is
It's
anyone?
Friday night as well.
Friday night, I forgot that's coming up this week, 5:30 to 7:30 on Friday night at Parkway, and then it's also from 9 to 11 at Parkway. So if you have young people in your lives who want to do shopping for their families, it's like an opportunity for kids to go in, and it's very reasonably priced items, and kids get to do their own shopping for their friends and families.
And they get a personal shopper.
They do, they usually
And they
middle
get
school
those
students
specials
who
wrapped, so if they're buying stuff for mom and dad don't end up wrapped.
Are enough of us gonna do what we need to notice?
My
I'm
kids
gonna
will
be there
be-
Saturday morning.
I will be there to pick up Kringle, and then I will be doing our family.
So it's a lot, Kringle, because the Kringle
If you
fundraiser.
did the Kringle fundraiser, or there are a few other things, but that's.
I'm going to coffee, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Mhm.
And then,
Did we go?
we're over, but,
Oh.
didn't I see
You
Aspen?
jinxed it.
The clock is right now.
It's the stopped clock. It's right. I was totally right now. It's the proverbial stopped clock. Are you gonna sign us up for the WASB convention?
Yeah,
Or am I
yeah.
gonna do that?
That's a great, I think Diana wanted to know who's
Yes.
going when and.
I have Danielle,
And did you see me ask for the pre-convention workshop
Yes.
on data?
I have all your information.
So it looks like three of
know
us
what
are
else?
going, Chris, Danielle and me. To WASB convention.
And just the regular convention, not free.
There's 4 workshops, there's like one for women with 4 Cs, there's one about data. It's like compassion, collaborate, it's something, there's one about
There's
women leaders.
I'm not doing pre-con.
There's
I don't think I'll do any
The
extra.
the data is like the report card, yeah, it's pretty.
And I'll send you guys information. There's one
Finance
evening
one.
speaker that I think is coming in and that one supports the CACG, the Closing the Achievement Gap. So I'll send you that information if you're interested. And then I know the Closing the Achievement Gap also thought about an opportunity for board members to connect in the evening at one of those.
Oh,
That
yeah,
would
what
be
about,
fun.
yeah, see if I get any
As
happy
a-
hour invites.
Well, no, it's actually some like learning and collaborating.
Oh, yeah,
But,
that's good.
Well,
That's a happy
That's
hour
a
for me,
TBD.
yeah.
And then,
Learning and collaboration.
and then for the idea of revisiting the fund balance policy, when do you think would be an appropriate time to get that on an agenda? Spring or,
I mean, if
February
January.
after forecasting, don't you do like the full?
I mean, I guess we could in January or February.
we very easily could do it in January. I know our next meeting agenda looks a little bullish.
Yeah, that's good, I want some time.
Yeah.
For you guys to be able to.
Okay.
So January or February,
Okay.
if it's forgotten, just remind.
I think January is a reasonable time.
I think January's good, yeah.
And I
I mean, to me, it's pretty simple. It's just increasing that amount,
Yeah.
and taking a look at
Yeah.
that, like, it's very nominal. And we will have more policy, we have a policy review that'll be coming up again. soon, So maybe we can coordinate that all.
It's
Sexy.
administrative. Yeah, I like it. I'm like, let's go.
There's only one motion remaining.
Motion to remain here. Just kidding.
There is no second.
Motion dies.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you for an excellent meeting, everyone.
Thank you.
Friday is gonna be. I don't think